Hello, it's Kate, and this is a video that's just going to talk about my first day of casual relief teaching. Now, to be honest, it wasn't my first day, it was technically my second. I count it more as my first because the first day I was called in as the last minute and I was more there as support during the day. So I did only a tiny bit of teaching, but not really. It really was just more support, supervision, etc. This was the first day that I was, today, that I was really there as a casual teacher. I was expected to be there and be in charge and be a teacher. So it was good. I'm tired. I don't know if that's just because it was a full day's work or because teaching is hard and it is just generally draining. I know I had a slight headache at the end of the day, but I think that's because I didn't have anything to drink the whole day. But what happened was I got there early. The staff were really friendly. They answered all my questions, helped me know the basic system because every school is different. Every school runs differently. Even times that children have recess and lunch are different, so you have to be pretty aware of the goings on and how it all works. So they were really helpful, so that was great. I find out where I pick up my first class because I didn't have one class throughout today. I actually had four different classrooms that I had to go to and teach for periods of time. So I find out where my first class lines up, I pick them up, I take them to the room, and the teacher left some instructions, and the instructions were that I had to take the kids outside and they had to do some like PE games because there was a sports carnival coming up and they hadn't prepared yet. So I did that. That worked relatively well. It took longer to get them outside and ready than I expected, but it was relatively successful. So then I had to move on to the next class. This class, again, I was left with instructions to teach the lesson, and I had to teach a math lesson. I had to go through like multiplication activities with them, which were a little bit more involved than I expected, but it worked out reasonably okay. Again, timing was tricky, but this time it was more, we had to have materials distributed to pairs of children, and that took longer than I expected. So again, kind of at the end, when the bell rang, they only really had just gotten started on what they were finally meant to do, what the lesson was really leading up to. Because it was a series of warm-up exercises and then the main event kind of thing, and then only really just started it, and then they had to pack up and go to recess. So timing is definitely something I need to work on. It's just hard because easily one of the hardest things to do when you're a teacher is to get the children to be quiet and to listen. Is easily the hardest thing ever. You have a room full of about 20 to 30 children and you'll ask them all to be quiet, but some will still be talking. You'll try to get them to be quiet, and then some other group over here starts talking. You try to get them, and it just kind of goes around and around and around. And that's why you have a lot of teachers who like snap at children and like get really loud and aggressive, because unfortunately that does sort of work a lot of the time. I tried to be a lot more calm in my approach and more positive reinforcement, which worked with some children and not so much with others. So I'll just keep trying different techniques. So anyway, so that was the morning. Then I had to go to another class. This was an older group. They didn't have as much of a challenge with the whole listening to instruction part because they were older and they kind of understood. But the hard part with any of this is it's very improv. So you go in there, you're only given some very quick instructions. Okay, they're doing a math lesson, or they're doing a writing lesson, or they have to go out for PE, and here's what I want you to do. Okay, go. That's what it's like. So when I was in this class, yeah, they had to do a writing exercise. It was more of a test for the big exams that are coming up. And I had to explain to them briefly what a persuasive text was give them the instructions and try to get to convince them, felt more like convincing them to be silent while they do it, because it's like you gotta mimic exam kind of situations. Well, being silent didn't quite happen, unfortunately. Some children, majority of kids, they do try to do the work. That is good, but you always have children, especially in this class, who I had to move because they were talking to their friends and being distracted. There were clearly numerous children who just didn't want to do the work and would try to get out of it and do all kinds of things to try to get out of it. So that was the real challenge with that room. So could have been better. I know one thing I really need to work on is delivering instructions as clearly as possible and with enough detail that they feel confident in going forward with it. So that's something, like I said, it's hard because you're just sort of improvising a lot. So you have to go in with a really good knowledge of pretty much really everything you ever learnt from kindergarten to year 6. Everything. Because you have to just be able to teach it immediately. So that's tough. Am I still recording? I am. Sorry, I just wanted to check. Anyway, so there was that. And then finally, my last class, which was the one I had the most for the day, was a kindy class, kindergartners. And for this one, fortunately, I had some heads up on what it was about I had to teach. Healthy foods, unhealthy foods. And I was given the unit outline prior to this, and I got to call up the teacher and say, hey, what lesson should I do? Because the unit outline actually says all the kinds of lessons that are contained within the unit. And so I picked an art lesson. We went forward with that. It went relatively well. Again, mainly just trying to keep the children listening, paying attention when I'm trying to talk to them. Try to get them to stop talking. It's very, very, very hard. Way hard. It's like trying to convince slightly above average cats to do what you want them to do. You ever heard that phrase, herding cats? It's very much like that, but slightly more intelligent cats. Cats that might listen to you. There are cats that will listen to you and will follow your directions. Move over there or go over there, do this and that. But the rest of them will just meow to the other ones and do whatever they want. So you have to deal with that. So yeah, Al and I also had some playground duty too today. That wasn't too bad. Just because I had one student who wasn't following instructions because they had to share equipment and they weren't sharing equipment. So blah 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 blah. Anyway. Other than that, yeah, I was, it wasn't as bad as I thought. It definitely gave me an idea of what I should expect. Is that, probably most of the time I'm going to come into a classroom and either for these short periods or maybe, I have to see when I get a whole day one what that's going to be like, where I am just in one class the whole day. But it just seems like, yeah, you just dropped in the middle of a classroom. They're like, okay, you're going to teach the children this, this, and this. Off you go. And that's it. That's casual relief teaching for you in a nutshell. So yeah, anyway, that was my first day. Thank you very much for listening. And I'm tired and I'll probably go to bed soon. Alright. Take care. Thank you. Bye.